Hello, Audioholics. This is Logan, and welcome back to Audioholics Anonymous. Today, we will be doing another album review. This is the new Danny Elfman album that just dropped. It is called Big Mess, and here to help me is, well, you know what? The joke is pretty obvious this time. So let's just say Tyler.
What's going on, guys?
Cricket. Right, so what did you think of this album?
Oh, I'm going first. Okay. It's all right. So Danny Elfman is a composer, and you can definitely like a soundtrack movie composer, and you can definitely tell that when you listen to this album. A lot of it sounds like, something you would hear in a movie, but that's kind of the issue I have with it. Movie soundtracks don't usually stand on their own, not even good ones like Jurassic Park or Star Wars, or I wouldn't really listen to that on its own for the most part. It's all cinematic and epic sounding, but there's nothing that really hooks me into wanting to listen to it on its own, with notable exceptions, of course. Like every now and then I'll play the Imperial March, but no one's listening to the entire soundtrack of Star Wars on its own. You kind of understand what I'm saying there. And that's kind of the problem with this album too. I feel like every song was thoroughly thought about, but most of it I just wouldn't want to listen to, honestly. It's very, I should say it's very Nine Inch Nails influenced, and I'm not a huge fan of Nine Inch Nails. Then you take his aesthetic and throw it into movie soundtrack isms, and just a big cup of not my thing, I think. There are some things I enjoyed about it, though. The progressive side of the album is fairly interesting. There's some cool, like, song structures and complex sort of passages in these parts, but that's not really unusual for a composer like Danny Elfman, even in, like, a film soundtrack. Like, odd time signatures and things like that might be out of place and weird in rock music, but it's fairly common in orchestral music. Also, he did like a remake of a old Oingo Boingo song, and that was pretty good.
He was a frontman for Oingo Boingo for...
Yeah, if you didn't know. So overall, I would say it was all right. Nothing I thoroughly enjoyed. I wouldn't really recommend it unless you really, really, really needed some Nine Inch Nails fan fiction in your life. Also, Danny Elfman sounds a lot like Marilyn Manson on this record, which is kind of weird, honestly. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think you can see my thoughts on this. This is an amazing fucking album. No, okay, I was low-key triggered when he went on his tirade about, oh, it sounds like soundtrack music. No more than fucking Nightwish. I mean, come on. Like, oh, because it has orchestral sounds to it. And
that's not why it sounds like a soundtrack. It's atmospheric and ambient and doesn't really have hooks. Nightwish have hooks.
Yeah, like Nightwish.
Nightwish have hooks for days, dude. Like, the vocals are the main reason you listen to Nightwish.
Okay, well, fuck you. This is just such an amazing album. So this is the first album that Danny Elfman has done that's not soundtrack related in about 25 years, and the first one on his own in about 35 with his 1984 solo album. There might have been more, I'm not aware of them, but I'm pretty sure this is the first non-soundtrack related thing he has done in a very long time. And when you're doing something that you haven't done for a very long time, it can be a little bit of a gamble. Are you going to be a little bit rusty? Could you improve a little bit? And I mean, like, obviously no album is objectively perfect, but I think this is something that if you had told me it was written as an extra Oingo Boingo album, I would have believed you, because it seems like it seems like the natural lineage. You kind of, Oingo Boingo kind of became like they started as sort of goofy, then they became, well, I guess they kind of had their more sellout phase, and then they got a lot darker and a lot more serious. This is the next evolution of that. This is the darkest album that is, I guess, by somewhat of a proxy associated with Oingo Boingo. Now, this is not an Oingo Boingo album. This is a Danny Elfman album, and Danny Elfman has been scoring a lot of dark movies for decades. The original Batman movies, a lot of Tim Burton stuff, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the remake of Alice in Wonderland, Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, just to name a few. So Danny Elfman kind of knows what he's doing, right? So what you have is, like he said, there's a lot of Nine Inch Nails influence clearly, a lot of Marilyn Manson influence clearly, but beyond that, I feel like it's a lot more dynamic than both of those bands. Kind of drawing like back to some of his work on soundtracks, but I feel it's different enough to where it stands out in its own right and shouldn't be compared to something like a soundtrack. If I had any complaint at all, it's that maybe it's a little bit too long. Or it could be seen that way for some people. It's a pretty long album, I believe about an hour and a half. In fact, I have it up here. It is an hour, an hour and 12 minutes, still pretty long. But I feel also that it doesn't drag as much as you would expect an hour and a quarter minute album to. And like he said, there's the callback, the remake of the old Oingo Boingo song Insects, which I think is a little bit better than the original. You know, don't shoot me, I'm just a messenger. Fantastic album. I mean, look, even the vinyl, like, I gotta show you how cool this record is. It's two differently colored records. So you have this one, which is this is the green one. And then you have like a more kind of like textured one. I mean, look at this. Look at this. If that doesn't scream album of the year, I don't know what does. But, you know, some people are free to be wrong, I guess. You know, this is a free country and you're allowed to have a wrong opinion. So, do you have anything else to add?
No. So, did you guys listen to this album? Probably not, let's be honest, but you should. You should listen to it and formulate your own thoughts. And once you do, tell us what you think of it in the comments section below. Without further ado, we bid you
Audio do. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.